Good morning. I know it's 8:30. Some of us are undercaffeinated, some of us are already overcaffeinated, but this is gonna be awesome. We've got 6 great lightning talks for you this morning, and to get us kicked off, I'm going to introduce, Haley Dunbraver with Python, Turtles, and Learning to Code. Take it away.
All right, good morning. So my name's Haley Dunbraver, and I'm a fairly new professional Python developer, and actually a year today. And yeah, and one of the best things that I came across when I was learning to code was the Python Turtle library. And so I wanted to share it with you a little bit to encourage you to use this as a tool if you have people in your user groups that want to learn to code. And side note, it's really fun even if you know how to code. It's kind of like a spirograph. You'll see in a second. All right, so what are Python turtles? The turtle module is a part of the standard Python library, so you already have it. It was developed in part as a teaching tool, especially for kids. And the basic premise is we ask ourselves, what if a turtle dips his tail in some paint and walked across a canvas? What if we could direct the turtle and have it draw something? And here are some of the benefits that I see of playing with this library. And probably the biggest one is that it allows the learner to visually understand what their code is doing. And it's a good introduction to many ideas, including classes, objects, attributes, methods, modules, importing, the standard library, loops, conditional statements, and even regression. You can draw some pretty cool fractals. It's a lot of fun. I suggest you check it out. And it's just really fun for seasoned people and newbies alike. So I want to show you a turtle, and this is just a very, very simple one. All it does is draw a square over and over and over, rotating a little bit each time. All right. So there he goes. And because he's doing or the same thing over and over, this is in a loop, right? And so the student can visually see their loop executing. And I know for a lot of people, that's kind of a magical part of computer science is that you can't see you can't see your statements execute. And this is just a really good way for them to do that. And also with methods and attributes and stuff, you see I was able to give my turtle a green color to draw with, right? So it's actually a method that assigns a color. But you can just understand object-oriented programming a little bit better because there's something you can physically see. So, I wanted to, in closing, give you a few resources to look into. I really, really suggest the resource called How to Think Like a Computer Scientist. This is a good resource for adults learning to code. There's an interactive website and the original work, and you'll see the authors listed there. The Python 3 docs for the turtle module is also really good. And if you have any questions, you can tweet at me at RunWindyBird. And yeah, I think that's it. Thank you all for your time.
Thank you, Haley. All right, next up we have Dustin Ingram with X for Humans.
Hi everyone, my name is Dustin. I'm a DI on GitHub. I work for PromptWorks, which is a software consultancy in Philadelphia. And this talk is called X for Humans. Now, I'm sure everyone here is familiar with one of my very favorite Python modules, requests. Requests is great. I use it all the time in almost all my projects. And I'm especially sure that everyone here has seen its infamous tagline, Python HTTP requests for humans. But I just learned something recently, and I think I really need to share this with you all. Not only is requests the only HTTP library safe for human consumption, but using other HTTP libraries could lead to a host of really awful symptoms, including death. Death. Folks, I don't know why you're laughing. This is serious. I really like all you people, and I don't want you to accidentally die by using software not fit for human consumption. So I have decided I'm going to do something about it. And so the first thing I thought of was making sure that the software that we use is really, truly 100% human-grade software. So I made this badge. Please feel free to add it to your repo, but I implore you, please be careful as well. Make sure that all your software is absolutely human-grade before using this badge. I thought that was pretty great, but it made me realize, how are we supposed to discover software that is human-grade as developers? So I made a search engine. This search engine finds software made for humans and only for humans, so we can search for HTTP, and requests is at the top of the list, and we can search for Vim. We get a couple hits for Vim, cool, and Emacs. Oh, that's interesting. And then I had an epiphany. That works really well, but I realized by some estimates there are over 8 million species out there that we even know of, and we only write software for one of them. That's speciesist. And I don't want to be speciesist. So I've decided to start porting some of the more popular human-only libraries to other species. And first up is Ruffruff's Bark Yip Yip Ruff Gur Woof Woof. In case you didn't catch that, that's requests HTTP for canines. If you were at my talk yesterday, you may have noticed that I'm somewhat of a dog enthusiast. I've lived with dogs my whole life. I think I can speak a little dog, so I've begun to port this library. And as you can see, most of the core functionality is there. It is available on PyPI. All you need to do is pip install Ruffruffs. And patches are welcome. We're already up to version bark.woof. So one final note here, and seriously, I'm not trying to make fun of Kenneth. He did a really great thing when he made requests. He showed us that it is possible to build an API that is intuitive to use, but is also useful. Unfortunately, this also convinced a whole lot of people that branding their software as for humans would make their libraries easier to use as well. It doesn't. And it's not just us. It's not just the Python community. Lots of other software ecosystems are being speciesist as well. So please, help me spread the message. Go forth, specifically go forth to Hacker News right now, and let me help everyone know, don't be speciesist. Write software for everyone. Thank you.
Thank you, Dustin. Next up, we have Scott Siebert with Warning Jet Kills.
So I'm often faced with this problem. I have a 2D array of numbers, and I'd like to some way to visualize them. A 3D plot doesn't work so well, like with a third dimension being spatial, because you have to rotate it, and there's things you can't see, and it's not so clear. So instead, I make the third dimension typically color, which is typical. So a year ago, I was doing this. I would assign every value. I still do this with a different color map. I would assign every value color. And so like here, 1/3 corresponds to blue and 1 corresponds to red. I should really care about this. I'm a grad student at the University of Wisconsin in a field related to image processing. I have 2 pull requests for scikit-image. I'm giving a poster later today about image processing. I made an app, and I wrote a blog post about color. I should care about this, right? Well, now I do. After I wrote this blog post, a video was released given at SciPy 2015 by Nathaniel Smith, who's here, and Stephen Vanderwalt, who's also here, and possibly in the audience. In this video, they describe going from this color map Jet to this other color map, Viridis, which is the new default, which is a big change. This color map is better in some sense. It's perceptually uniform, meaning that a 25% change in numerical value corresponds to a 25% change in color. What that means is that in the color map Jet, there's no band, or no, in the color map Viridis, there's no bands. In the color map Jet, you can see like a band of green, a band of red. It's hard to distinguish like what's a different green, what's a different red. So this is kind of a big deal, right? This is how you view your data. This could be the output of, this could be after, 12 hours of simulation, and you're seeing the results in this way. So changing how you see those results is like, it's fundamental. It's how you see it. In fact, they've even done studies on this. They've done studies on how accurate doctors are when they view the results in certain color maps. So for the color maps A, B, C, D, all the way through H, they've tested to see how accurate doctors are. In this, they found that doctors are not very accurate when they found that the rainbow color map, aka JET, the old Matplotlib default and MATLAB default and everything default, can significantly reduce a person's accuracy and efficiency. That's a huge deal. This means that you can go to a doctor and he can look at your profile or whatever in the color map Jet, and he can interpret it incorrectly. This means that Jet can kill. That's all I have.
Thank you, Scott. Next up, we have Seb Leonard with Transitions in Tech, a Transgender Experience. Take it away, Seb.
Hello, can you hear me? Hi. Now for something completely different. There's nothing to do with tech really in this talk, but there is lots of Nyan Cat, so hopefully you will enjoy it. So a content warning, I'm going to be talking a little bit about my gender transition. As a trans person, I am not always up for listening to those stories, so if that happens to be your situation, I wanted to let you know that's what I'm going to be talking about. If, however, you happen to just be uncomfortable with transgender people, you should stay and listen to what I have to say. I also want to say that I am voluntarily sharing this information with you as a trans person. Don't go and say, I saw Seb Leonard talk at PyCon and he said such and such, so I'm going to ask you about your gender transition. No. I am here because I feel safe, because I have the privilege of being part of this community, which I feel safe and welcome in, which is wonderful. And I am choosing to let you into this part of my private life. So this is not something that you should ever expect a trans person to tell you about. But because I like you all, I'm going to tell you anyway. Okay, so who am I? My name is Sev. My pronoun is he, him, his. It's not a preference. So when you talk to people about their pronouns, you just say, what is your pronoun? It's not a preference, it's a reality for me. Just like I don't identify as male, I am male. Kind of subtle language differences, but they convey something very important. So I'm going to talk about my history in tech. And if you read through this slide, you're going to notice this word woman several times. In fact, I played a female impersonator for most of my life, until very recently. So my history in the tech community starts back in 1999 at The Ohio State University. When I came onto campus that year, The Ohio State had figured out that to get underrepresented gender minorities, in particular to excel in engineering, they wanted to bring us onto campus before our freshman year started to get to know other people. And that was a very important experience for me as a person who, I'll say, lived in the world as female at the time. Unfortunately, at The Ohio State, much like the history in general of the United States and bathrooms, the buildings were all built just for men. In particular, the freshman engineering building that I was part of. There were only 2 women's bathrooms. They were on the first floor in the basement, and the second through 5th floor, where all the engineering classes were, there were only men's bathrooms. There was like one on the 2nd floor that apparently was converted for women, but there was no sign on it, so nobody knew where it was. So bathrooms have always been a problem for me, interestingly, as someone working in tech who is identified both, or not really identified, but lived as a woman and then now identify as a trans guy, as I'm sure you have all heard ad nauseum about bathrooms. And you can see that a lot of the rest of my history, up until extremely recently, has been as an active member of the Women in Tech community, both like as a member and a mentor to people. I was the only female presenting, we will say, person on the clock circuit design team at Intel where I worked, and that was definitely a very consistent experience as kind of being one out of the crowd. And it's like, but wait, you're a dude, but you have all this like women in engineering background. It's like, yes, I'm trans. So let's talk about that, my history as a trans person. So I kind of started on this gender journey somewhere around 2013, 2014, again, very recently, just like, I think there's this gender thing, something's kind of weird, something's going on. And then on my birthday in March of last year, I said to a very close circle of friends, call me Sev. Call me he and him, because I think that's much more who I am than how I've been living my entire life. In November, I got a new chest, which was very exciting. And this past March, happy birthday to, that's why Mr. T is here, referring to my beginning of testosterone hormone replacement therapy. And then about a month later, none of my clothes fit. Normally, I come to these tech conferences and I'm like, I don't want your free swag, I don't want your t-shirt. And now I'm like, no, please give me your t-shirts because that's kind of the only thing that fits right now. And I haven't had time to go shopping. So if you saw, I gave a presentation on Sunday, and this is the same shirt because it's the only button-down shirt I have that fits. I am still gendered as female pretty much 99% of the time, so I still live in this, now I live in a very weird place where I'm like, no, I am male, but I read more as female, so I kind of deal with this gender ambiguousness. And then I came here to give a tutorial, first time presenting to the tech community as a trans person, which was really exciting. So to kind of recap, what doesn't fit here? So I was living as a woman from the entirety of my tech career. My clothes do not fit. The public's perception of my gender doesn't fit. And my community also no longer fits. So it has become very difficult for me to interact in this community that I've been a part of as a woman in tech because I'm a man and I'm transitioning. So it's very kind of scary to go through this loss of community, which is really a thing that trans people deal with in general, losing community of different types. So I wanted to talk about more than binary gender diversity. We have space for women in tech circles, but what about trans men? A lot of people have never even heard of female to male trans people or even gender non-binary people who are not women identified. So why am I telling you all this? I don't want you to feel bad for me or for yourself. I just want to raise awareness of the experience of people like me who are part of the tech community, who are F to M, trans masculine, and trans men, because I hear that people don't hear about our experiences. So to be inclusive, know that trans inclusivity means trans men too. So if you really want to be women-specific and inclusive, but you don't want trans men there, don't say trans inclusive, because that means us as well. And we suffer a lot of erasure when people talk about the trans community without including us. If you want to be a gendered space, that's totally cool. Just be clear in your messaging. And finally, if you'd like to be a trans ally, there are resources for you that you can look at because you won't have the luxury of a trans person necessarily to ask. Nor should you, because it's really not their job to tell you. But GLAAD has put together a lot of resources for you. And that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Sev. Next up, we have Moshe Sadka with Secure and Reliable Deploy. Take it away.
Hi, yes, I'm Moshe Zadka, and I want to talk to you about how we can do better when we deploy stuff without building tons of infrastructure. So most of that is based on what I have in that GitHub repo, and some of it is based on ideas I got from Gleph. So I'll describe what it is often my job, but sometimes it's the job of all of us. We already have existing code that does something possibly useful, not in this case. We want to deploy it securely, meaning we don't want to leak our keys to like sensitive databases all over the internet, as is sometimes the case. And we want to deploy it reliably, meaning if we deploy to more than one server, we want to make sure that we deploy the same things to all the servers and so on. So this is an example of the application code. It's very simplified and not full because I want to fit it on a slide. Already you see this is ahead and above the usual game because they're using proper blueprints in Flask, which is not typical. So usually your first job is get the code to look like that so you can actually deploy it reasonably. But in my fantasy scenario, people have already thought about it in advance. So now we need to add the secret keys, right? Like as you can see, like here we use service1.com, and we need to get special headers that will authenticate us as someone who can access Service 1. I wanted to put this on slides, and I realized like I didn't trust any of you guys, so like you're gonna steal my key, so I can't do that. But that's true for GitHub, right? If I'm gonna put this in GitHub, even if it's a private repo, eventually it'll leak. Seriously, I've seen it leak in 3 different companies, so it will leak. So what do we do with it? So that's one thing we can do with it. We can encrypt it, put the encrypted key that is no longer a secret because it's encrypted in GitHub, and decrypt it at runtime from, say, the environment of secret key. Now, that doesn't seem like you win a lot because you could have just put the key in the environment. But the nice thing here is often you have to connect to like 50 million services, which is usually the case, especially if you're a small company, so you want to outsource everything. So here you at least only need to make sure that one key, and it can be the same key no matter how many other services people add in the future. Sorry. That's usually like how you write your app to deploy it well. Then you probably want to run multiple processes. I only showed you the web part because it's a lightning talk and I don't have time to show you all the code, but it's a robot that's bored, so it also needs to update on occasion how bored it is. Spoiler, pretty bored. So we need to run several processes. So you want to run like a process supervisor. In this case, I chose nColony because I like it. You can also use supervisor-d if you like it for some reason. And the neat thing is I try to do everything from one main, so like that main also basically writes out the configuration and then runs itself with arguments to run as the other processes. So you can pack everything into one main, and the reason to pack everything into one main is then you can pack everything into one binary. PEX is a really, really neat thing. It stands for Python executable. It will wrap your Python code plus all your third-party dependencies into one big file that you can move around. And we'll just go into an entry point. And then that entry point can obviously call any other function, so you can tell it, hey, when you're called as nColony, just do the supervision. And when you call this web, just run unicorn, and so on. So that's pretty neat. And then your Docker file doesn't have to look very long. You probably don't want complicated code in your Docker file, because seriously, Docker file is like the worst language ever. So this way, oh my God. I'm not even kidding. So this way I have like basically 5 lines of Docker files, so it's pretty reasonable. As you can see, I do have to install retroactively one library. And I'm going to talk about how some things can be done better at the end. But at least this is already like ahead of the curve in how small Docker files are and how easy it is to like figure out what's going on. And then this is the part where I do go a bit YOLO. So I deal with Docker machine. I just create like a machine that has a Docker service on it. And then this is my deployment. This is super YOLO, especially because I shut down and then start up. But this will already work and will already be pretty reliable, especially if you kind of run this in a loop on several Docker machines and you have them behind a load balancer. This will kind of work, which is pretty impressive, and will actually be secure. You'll notice that, because I'm insane and paranoid, I actually keep the key in .. so that it's never accidentally in a directory that's under Git, because even if you Git ignore, eventually you will check it in, you will publish it on GitHub, you will leak, you will be sad. Happened to people that I know. So that's basically very little infrastructure. Pretty much the only thing you need is link in Pinnacle and use public key encryption for that. So some parting thoughts. So try to avoid secrets on GitHub because they will leak. Try to avoid secrets on Docker Hub or wherever else you keep your Docker images. Sure, you keep it in a private repo, that will leak too. So use both PEX and Docker for isolation. Docker is really great for isolating your process environment, but PEX is really nice for isolating your Python dependencies so that you still have you still understand what's going on at the Python level instead of using putting a bunch of files in Docker, and so that's the only place you understand how everything fits together. So a couple of do as I say, not as I do. I put the secret key in an environment variable because it's much easier to show you on a slide. If your target platform is not, okay, if your target platform is not a slide, then you probably don't want to do that, and probably use something less yellow like Kubernetes or Mesos. Thank you all.
Thank you, Moshe. All right, our last lightning talk of the morning is Anna Nuxel with Coding for Accessibility. Take it away, Anna.
Whoa. Is that what the back of my head looks like? Hey, good morning. I'm Anna Nuxel. I work at Duo Security as a software engineer, and I'm going to talk to you guys about coding for accessibility. So I would say I'm a big fan of the internet, and I'm a big fan of people. And one of the really cool things about the internet, our idealism about how accessible it is, how many people can get access to new ideas or new communities that they don't have physical access to. I think that we are very idealistic about how much content people can actually see on the internet. While there are actually millions of people who can't access wide swaths of the internet because the particular technology that they use to access this information isn't being coded for when we build the internet, when we build web pages. This is my favorite quote about disability and usability. Disability is a conflict between someone's functional capability and the world we have constructed. It is the product that creates the barrier, not the person, just as design is at fault when a site has poor usability. I think this has really informed my choices in building front-end web applications. So let's consider that about 10% of people worldwide are directly affected by disability. Or in other words, we've built a world that doesn't suit the basic needs of at least 1 in 10 people. So you've built a beautiful web thing. My modest proposal is, why don't we try to make it accessible for everyone? One of my favorite things about software engineering is that we're actively building the world that our users are engaging with. And we're making choices, intentionally or otherwise, about the kind of experience they're going to have. So if we can build this world, why not build it to make the most content accessible to as many people as possible? Something to know about accessibility is the global standard is specified by the W3 Consortium as WCAG 2.0, which stands for Web Content Accessibility Guidelines. I had to look that up last night. So, how do I get started on accessibility? Well, the first tool is empathy, having empathy for your users. And you can use user personas to mock what different people's needs are. You could also use manual testing, testing with users, bringing in help for experts, or if you guys at PyCon are anything like me, I think you're going to want to do it yourself. So I'll introduce my favorite accessibility tool, which is the Google DevTools accessibility plugin. If you Bing it, you can find it, I'm sure. So maybe you can guess which website I'm doing an accessibility audit here on. But this tool allows you to have in the Audits tab in your Chrome DevTools an accessibility audit option. Oh, I made an arrow for it. When you run it, you can see that a few rules have been applied to the web page, and it'll tell you the severity of any violations of the WCAG 2.0 standards. If you're not an expert in WCAG 2.0, and it's an enormous document, it's actually been simplified to different points here. So when there's a violation, you can see exactly what code violates it, and then the more information links back to WCAG 2.0 standards with examples. It's beautiful, and it's on GitHub. I know we're pretty big fans of GitHub here too. And you can also do accessibility properties on individual elements. Look at that accessible PyCon 2016 logo. So anyway, that's one of my favorite tools. In conclusion, as programmers, we get to build the world that our users experience. And if we approach this with a sense of compassionate curiosity for others' experiences, I think we can build a better internet. Thank you, and stay in touch.